And I see that differently throughout the community. You drive our State Road 60, and then you can pick your county. Pick any road that runs east and west from 95 or the Turnpike and take it to their ocean in the community, and you'll see a marked difference. Now, that didn't happen by accident. The way that happened, for those of you that don't know, is we had the section of State Road 60 from 58th Avenue, or from 60, no, it was 58th Avenue. 58th Avenue all the way to 95 that was two-laned. And the state told us that, I'm sorry, but this is just not in our plan. Well, what this community did is we said, that's fine, but we're not going to put up with a road like that. It's a hurricane evacuation route. What we did is we loaned the money to the state to fix their road to our standards. Now, I can see, quite frankly, in the big scheme of things, whenever this all comes down and comes together, they're going to be not regulatory or anything like that you mentioned, and I get that. They have no statutory, constitutional or statutory authority to be able to do that. But what they do, or what they probably will have the opportunity to do, is give their stamp of approval on whether or not you get dollars. And the conversation will probably go something similar to this. Okay, we need, since we only have this many dollars, we need to allocate these where they are the most efficient. Most efficient means we need to allocate those dollars where A, they have the worst traffic. By the way, we already took care of with a 6-lane road. You go to Brevard County, do look at their 192, and it's nothing like what we have. I was just up there, unfortunately. And since we're allocating these dollars where they are the most efficient, it dictates modern planning. And I'll challenge Mr. Keating if I'm wrong. The antithesis of good planning is a ranchette. That's the exact opposite of it. And that's because whenever you try to provide services to that type of lifestyle, it's just not efficient. And so if they go by, we're allocating dollars based on what's efficient over this large group of a consortium, we're going to be left out in the cold. And the way we go about doing things here, and I appreciate the comment, for example, about the fiber that was made. But, you know, I was on the school board in 2000 whenever we made the decision at that time to join cooperatively with Indian River County to lay fiber to every government building in Indian River County, understanding that we would have the structure in the future. It's also our policy that whenever we are building a road right now, we lay fiber, and we let it sit dark until we tap into it. We're ready for that. Why? We did this back a long time ago in trying to plan for the future. Our roads are the same way. Our concurrency standard is better and different than anybody else. And if you don't think so, go look at them. And why is that? That's because you talk about 8 units to the acre in Indian River County, people are thinking, oh my gosh, that's 7 stories tall. When in fact, 8 units to the acre is, quite frankly, probably some single-family residential development. That's our multifamily at the strong end. We're different here. And it rubs me wrong whenever somebody says that we should be there to defend what we hold near and dear. Why do we have to defend that? These people out here elected us to do that. We don't need to go defend it. We need just to keep it here. And I appreciate what you're saying. I disagree with it from the transportation, from the dollars and how it's allocated, and how we have to deal with all these other federal programs from the local area projects, when we have to use the Davis-Bacon federal acts that require certain, like, for the contractors to have a certain wage of union labor. I mean, it's this thick to use federal dollars. And all this is another federal overlay. You know, I'm not ready to pull out of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. Why? Because I do think we have something in common with Martin County. We do with St. Lucie County. We do somewhat with Palm Beach County, but not nearly as much. But that cooperation and that talking has some merit. This is a whole lot more of us being a part of something that, quite frankly, we can be told what to do just by the sheer volume, size, scope, and scales. I'm out.
Yeah. Commissioner, your comment about the efficiency and mass transit, I agree 100% with you, okay? If this plan goes forward, there's very likely something in the plan that says, you know, federal money should only go to transit systems where it's a higher density. I agree with you 100%. We get our GO line funding from the federal government. And based on that, they may say, you know what, the money we're giving in your county, and you're running a route all the way out there to Fellsmere, isn't very efficient, so we're going to cut your funding. Now, we can be part of the plan and say, no, we still think that's a viable use, and we can argue to keep that funding. Or we can get out of the plan, let the big counties say, yeah, you know what, we've got more density, we want all the federal bus funding, and then we get cut. So, you know, you're right, but my point is, shouldn't we be down there looking out for our best interest? Whereas if we don't do that, we get left out and we had no say in it.
Well, that's already coming with us, whether we're in this plan or not. Mr. Keating, don't we have certain thresholds as far as on our MPO that we get our federal dollars from to fund our transportation system, that once we hit 200,000 of population, we jump into a different category?
Yes.
That's coming? Is that correct?
That's coming.
You're correct. Operating dollars for transit are restricted once you're over 200,000.
So that's coming whether we're part of the plan or not. Why? Because we run one of the most efficient, right now,
Right, but
plans.
it may come sooner, is all I'm saying. They don't have to keep funding us.
I know that, but what I'm getting at, though, is once we hit that figure, we're going to have to fund our transportation system. And then what it is we're taking that bait and going down the more efficient structure, everything that they're talking about, everything, you know, if you have a school, you want a school where children don't have to walk to it. So therefore, you want 500 elementary kids or 750 elementary kids within 2 miles of the school so they can all walk to school. And everything is more efficient, the more compact that gets, but that is not this community. That's simply not who we are.
I think that was the point with Point West,
Yeah.
and that's in our community.
But that's, if you look at, what's the density of Point West per acre? It's less than 2?
Yeah.
Less than 2 units per acre. It's got a golf course and everything else in the middle of it.
Thank you. We okay with the point, counterpoint?
Sure.
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate that, and it's all beneficial to this discussion. Customarily, we'd go to the other side of the room and shift back over, and I would have the final comments. I want to take the opportunity to comment right now. I want to thank everybody for being here. You know, just a few weeks ago, there was a discussion on what are we going to do, and there were 3 fine individuals from the community who decided to speak out and be part of a public speaking agreement and be heard before this county commission. I want you to know that, again, fully supported by all of our county commissioners, that I felt that we needed to see all of the people. After all, I reminded that we were part of that Constitution, we the people, and I want you to know that I have had a great honor to hear all of your remarks. I might even say, for most of it, ditto. I might have already said ditto, Commissioner Davis, but I wanted to take some time to just look at a few of the comments that were made. Ms. Wilson made a comment, Rosemary Wilson made a comment about she had been Delphi'd. She had that Delphi moment. She felt that you all were Delphi'd. Well, many of you were. Many of us were. If we all don't know what that is, if anybody's ever gone to college and sat in a college class, do you remember that aha moment when you found out if you were a liberal or a conservative, regardless of what you were when you walked in that room? Because that's what was wanted to be known, and that's how you were directed to think, and the path that you took. For the others who did not take that path, perhaps maybe they've responded to a land development extravaganza where you might even win a free cruise or new windows. You wound up buying something somewhere. You were Delphi'd. Either you or your spouse made a decision that you were not prepared to make and left that room knowing that you were prepared to make that decision. It just happens, folks. We're all human beings. So I want you to know that, because I got a few phone calls that suggested, well, all of you supported this, with the exception of one, that you thought this was a good idea, and now you don't. Well, what happened with this plan was it was presented before us, not called the 750 plan a while back, called the 750 plan, presented here in a public forum, and any of you that attended, you recall you were given little clickers, and you voted. And your voting record in the room that day, live, it was very impressive. It was shown on the results of the screen. And you knew that you were there to be counted. Except there was a little difference with the skewness of the numbers that I felt, you see, because we all have to register our ages. And I see many of you that were there that day. Does anybody recall how many 18-year-olds were in the room? Okay. Does anybody recall how many 18-year-olds were reflected on the screen? The number was different. I see some hands. The number was different. The number was different on demographics. The number was different on preference. I spoke to individuals, and when they clicked, their numbers didn't respond up on the wall. Something was wrong there. Maybe that was perhaps my aha moment as well, to say, you know what, this is truly a Delphi experience. And I have no disregard for planning. I think we're the best planned environment, the best planned county in the state of Florida. Our comprehensive use plan is not only admired, but it's passed around throughout several counties to say, what are they doing? Do we have a perfect environment? Absolutely not. Can we get better? Yes. Give us a little bit more time. You've given us, some of us, time by keeping us in office to ensure that we're doing the right thing for you. Local government, supported by local individuals, and we have the opportunity to represent you as we do each and every day. I look at the staff. We have a wonderful staff that's been open-minded, that's worked according to the direction from this commission or previous commissions, and I think that information has been taken quite well and served the community as well. Some individuals who were not mentioned today have not been part of the discussion. Mr. Joe Baird, Jason Brown, and our counselor, Alan Plotkwich. The conversation has been here from you, from us, and about this whole concept of 750. I previously said that I would not be offensed if it became 6 and 20. I believe that a projection of 20 years is far more appropriate. I believe that 20 years is something that many of us will be able to have a vision to see, and I believe that when you have individuals, as we have in our staff, that 20 to 25 years is far more of an appropriate number to be looking at, to have a visioning process. After all, in 1999, who would have predicted what happened in 2001 here in the United States? The second shot that was heard around the world. Who would have thought that our world order would have changed, that our markets would have gone to where they've gone to? Are they in recovery? That's a matter of opinion. But who would have been able to predict all of these events that have taken place? 50 years? I don't know if we need to be on that track. I want to have a vision, but I want the vision to have some level of acuity. I just wanted to get back. I did mention, Joe, thank you so much for your conservative approach. Sometimes we agree to disagree individually as members of the board, but collectively, thank you. You deserve high regard for and recognition for what you do in this community, for this community, with the staff, with the budget we have, and keeping us the place that we want to be. So thank you very much. Thank you. I know you didn't get a speaking part today, but a lot of the greater good that is done in this community is done within staff's level and oftentimes not viewed before such a great audience. So since you all are here, I wanted Joe recognized as well. And Bob, there was some discussion about your presentation earlier. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was unbiased, it was informative, and I most certainly didn't feel any kind of Delphi feeling when you were presenting your case. I did see a slide during the presentation, and that was, to me, called a Delphi bolstering, and that experience was another reminder that sparked me to have to talk about the whole Delphi process today. I will now tell you that I enjoy the opportunity to working for you, working with you, and I thank everyone that's been in touch with us, whether they're in the room, or they're at home, or they unfortunately had to work. Some do have jobs that mandated that they could not come here today, but we want to thank everyone for their opportunity, and it's a pleasure to work for you locally within this government. Commissioner Zorn.
Mayor Bob. Me? Well, I can be brief because I can say I go along with Wesley and Commissioner Davis and Commissioner Fletcher. And first, I'd also like to second the accolades to County Administrator Joe Baird, because I always say Joe spends every penny as if it came out of his kids' college fund. But now that they're out of college, I got to think of another acronym to use for that, because but something is that personal. He is a great custodian of our money and spends it very wisely. Secondly, my predecessor said, keep things short. Alma-Lee Lois said, just be honest. So honestly, I'm not in favor of the plan. I'm looking forward to voting against it. But there's a few things that I see in the benefit of the 4 items that were listed. Sea level rise, not really that concerned about that. I do have a 4-year-old. He'll go around, he's now 4. He'll tell everybody. The global environment's going to be changing, and if you look back, my dad's got a collection of popular science where it's the ice age is coming, the heat age is, if you go back and have a 50-year collection, you can see every climate change, discussed. And so that's not something I'm gravely concerned about. The regional data, I think that'll be great for the guys that are down there, but I don't really see a benefit of what Fort Lauderdale or West Palm or Boca might be doing that I want to go take a peek at, that would bring value or benefit back to us up here. On the future trends, and I hold no planning degree, but my prediction on future trends for South Florida will be overcrowded, overcapacity on the roads, tall buildings, and transportation will be about the same as future trends. Now, I know they're working on things that'll be good for them, and that's great for them, but I don't see a benefit to us. There was some mention of the 6 million people that are in the 7 counties that they're looking at. Well, where is that 10%? Where are those 10% people going to go? That's 600,000. Well, if they're maxed out on land in South Florida, where are they going to ask them to go, or where are they going to ask the counties in the plan, hey, can you accommodate a portion of these 600,000? Which obviously would like, if they were all high-tech jobs paying 200,000 a year, I might figure out a way that we can get a good chunk of them here, but I don't think that's not the reality. And if the plan is warm and fuzzy and it's got no negative clawbacks and things in it, then if us opting out, that should just be all right, and it should just be thank you, you can go along your way, and no recourse. However, I think the reality of it is that we should expect some backlash at some point down the road when they do a federal grant scoring model. There's going to be some points that if you're not in the plan, you're not going to get enough points, and that means it's going to drive more money a different direction, and we're just going to have to know that up front, that's a likely happening. There was some mention on the GO line. We probably run not just the first or second most efficient operation in the state. I bet you if you compared us to other states, we're in the top 5 probably in the eastern U.S. That's probably a good reason that they'll come up with a way to cut our funding somewhere down the road. Some of the other concerns I heard from people that contacted the office, and I haven't done a final tally, but it's well over, probably over 100 contacts from people, most who are not here today. They said, I can't be there today, I've got work or other things. But they're a very diverse group. It's not all from one particular group or entity. I've got guys that are part of a golfer group, some that are fishermen, some are this, some are that, some are retired, some are actively working. So they all seem to have the very similar opinion, a little bit different here or there what their concern is, but the big concern is they don't want us to stay in the plan to the end to find out what's in the plan. The first part may be mild, but the other parts to come later, I think, is where we'll find out something different. Could be completely wrong, but I'd rather go on the side of caution and not be in the plan. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Saul. Commissioner Solari.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to be too brief.
We anticipated that. That's why you're last.
I'm going to begin just by saying that this has been the most amazing meeting in my 4 years as an elected official. This is the first meeting of this size and scope where the meeting was driven by ideas. When we had A1 Wally, which filled the chamber, that meeting was driven by the fact that there may be concrete, dust, noise, and other things that you could physically feel and that were tangible. When we had the sand mining ordinance deal, that was in my first weeks. Yours trial by fire is an idea. Mine was sand mining, and that's very tangible, though it did go down to property rights. But this, what we're here for today, is about beliefs, ideals, and principles which we hold dear to our hearts, and that's what separates it from every other meeting. So when I talk now, I'm not going to talk about facts that I know. I'm basically going to talk about facts that are rather beliefs that I hold. And I believe these beliefs are consistent with the beliefs of the majority of the people in Indian River County. So I began this process, and I first said no to then the Sustainable Communities Initiative about 14 months ago, based on a close reading of the document, the Economic Prosperity Plan. And I've noticed in the last weeks when I've talked about this, and I have another number of times, especially to different planners, they never go back to the foundation document. They talk about what we plan to do and this and that. But I believe the foundation document. And I believe the foundation document is counter to my beliefs. I believe that where we favor limited government, the 750 group is being pushed by the most bloated, irresponsible government in Americans' history, the present administration in Washington. Where we believe in local decision-making, the 750 will lead us to control from Washington. Where we believe in property rights, the implementation of 750 will see them wither away. Where we believe in representative democracy, the 750 promotes special interest democracy. Where we believe in fiscal responsibility, the 750 plan and that group reinforces spending by a federal government which has already imposed a future liability of over $1 million on every taxpayer. So, and where liberty and justice are both needed in the building of a great nation, 750 focuses on environmental justice, social justice, and redistributive justice without a nod to the needs of liberty. So that was just why I voted against it 14 months ago. But there are a multitude of additional reasons for leaving 750 today, but I'll focus on just three: the process, the planners, and corruption. The process. The work group roadshow in Indian River County on October 25th showed many in this county how manipulative the process has been. It began with an agenda that contained no substance, nothing that would indicate to a citizen that something of importance might be occurring. It continued with a 3-hour roadshow which had no meaningful discussion about either the possible contents of a proposed plan or what we in Indian River County would find acceptable in such a plan. The planners. To me, one of the most troublesome things to come up is that the planners do not see the possibility that there is a chance that the coercive power of the state will ever be used in Indian River County. I gave them a number of examples where the coercive power of the state has been used against us already, but their answer has always been, well, it can't happen here, it can't happen with this plan. In his reply to my letter of November 30th, Mr. Bush, in a letter dated December 12th, states, quote, participating in the 750 planning effort, implementing the resulting regional plan, changing local plans, zoning and capital spending, and requesting accepting federal assistance will be, as always, strictly voluntary, the sovereign right of a local government. My response to this is, if someone does not even acknowledge the possibility of a problem down the road, how will one ever prepare for it? I also think that Mr. Bush's is an incredibly naive position. The idea that the EPA, the HUD, and Department of Transportation, the shock troops of the Obama administration, will not at some future date try to use the coercive power of the state to bend us to their will is not just a possibility, it has such a high probability that people are already writing books about it. I ask your indulgence as I read 3 paragraphs from a book reviewed in the October 29, 2012 issue of the National Review. The book reviewed is called Spending the Wealth, How Obama is Robbing the Suburbs to Pay the Cities by Stanley Kurtz. And I'm going to say I find these things not by even looking for them. I was just reading this one before I went to bed on Sunday night. But the 3 paragraphs. Kurtz argues that these intentions can nonetheless be clearly seen if one takes the time for a close examination of the administration's urban policies, which promote a long-term consolidation of local governments, a quiet regionalization that will redirect wealth and funds to poorer inner cities. Indeed, he writes, redistribution is the heart and soul of regionalizations. Further down in the review, but look at what the White House is actually doing. Encouraging policy changes, including regional planning, tax-based sharing, and boosting public transit that promote the urban core at the expense of the suburbs. Through executive orders and new federal spending priorities, these smart growth strategies sidestep local community decision-making and end up centralizing control over urban policy at the national level. And finally, progressives have long harbored a disdain for localized Tocquevillian decision-making and the restraints on national power embedded in the U.S. Constitution, putting well-educated public administrators in charge of community development through public ownership of utilities and other core infrastructure, land use planning, and building regulation meant that the subjective and uninformed opinions of citizens would not hamper the pursuit of socially efficient outcomes. The final thing I mention is that of corruption. I find that the best definition of government corruption that I know of is the pursuit of private interest at public cost. I tried to discuss this some earlier, but at a March 16, 2012 Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council meeting, Ramon Trias said that the project has spent $700,000 with no results so far. A comment was made at the budget meeting earlier that morning that, quote, they have squandered most of $1 million. Now, I may have gotten all this wrong, but my understanding of this was that the Southeast Florida Regional Planning Council at that time had used most of some $700,000 to $1 million to basically fund their bureaucracy. That was my understanding, which could be wrong, upon leaving that meeting. And that was my understanding why the ownership of this grant transferred from the Southeast Regional Planning Council to the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I've heard a number of other disparaging remarks about the Southeast Regional Planning Council at meetings I attended as a member of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. I may have gotten them all wrong. What I haven't gotten wrong is that the size of the federal debt has reached immoral proportions. This type of corruption, which I think is taking place, and which I may be wrong about at this planning grant, where my understanding was, again, I could be wrong, that these funds were simply used, these taxpayer dollars, these public goods were simply being used to fund salaries for bureaucrats. That would be basically the private use of public goods. I may be wrong there, but I'm not wrong about the federal debt. And I believe that this type of planning process just puts us on the wrong road. So that's why I don't even want to be on the road today. The end result will not be a new utopia. The end result will that we will have made our children and grandchildren indentured servants to the state. That is my belief. And I believe that this becomes our immoral act if we stay in the 750. And for those reasons, I will make a motion that Indian River County today withdraw from the 750 group and do all that's necessary with
Second.
all whatever.
That's second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
should have let him speak first.
Well, I wanted everybody to be heard. Thank you, Commissioner Davis. That was a motion by Commissioner Solari. Quite eloquently, thank you very much, Commissioner Solari. Seconded by myself. I just, at this point, if there's any further discussion amongst the leagues, I just wanted to add that I had one concern, and one concern only, that it wasn't going to be right until the end of the day, and it appears that it's going in the right direction at the end of the day. It's now nearly 2 o'clock. Thank you for the past 4 hours of your commitment, and you will have our continual commitment. There was a concern I had that was not mentioned today, and it was regarding the amount of financial responsibility that may be placed upon you if it had not gone in the direction to remove ourselves from this plan. You see, Commissioner Solari, you mentioned many of the entities that would be responsible for services and commitment, but we didn't mention the fact that many times the plate comes back to the county to financially support the actions that were supported by those other entities that now have run out of money. And we do not want to see you being taxed any further, as we have continually kept the millage rate down. We've kept the taxation level at the lowest possible rate and still maintained the finest county to live in, and that is Indian River County. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question during this
Most
discussion
certainly.
period for the county attorney. Is it true that if the county opts out, but a municipality opts in, basically a portion of the county is still in, and how does that function? Or maybe Bob can answer that, the mechanism of how that works?
You know?
Yeah, actually, as I mentioned before, both City of Sebastian and City of Vero Beach are consortium partners. City of Fellsmere is a partnership member. The Indian River County School Board is a partnership member. So those entities, as far as I know, are going to continue to participate in the process. So the 750 will apply at least to those areas. Those jurisdictions will be a part of the process. So there'll be a presence up here of 750, although the county, the unincorporated county, won't have any interest in the plan.
Okay.
And they have the sovereign authority to adjust taxes as they have exercised this past year. Okay, well, with that, that's a motion by Commissioner Solari, seconded by myself. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1 with Commissioner O'Brien dissenting. Thank you very much. That's about you. Thank you.
Break for lunch?
Well,
Mr. Chairman, if I
ladies
could.
and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen,
guys wanted to go big stage.
Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, Mr. Baird, as we move on to the next item, Bob, how much time do you need for the text amendments, public hearing items 1 and 1A and 2?
Together, about 10 minutes.